I never felt that pressure. For me, the pressure of driving was nowhere near as high as the pressure I felt myself. You know, if I won a race, I was never happy.
Alex Yoong, from a racer to a team owner now after some years, do you still miss the feeling on track?
As long as I'm racing competitively, no.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not driving at the moment, but we're working with all the boys, you know, and the girls to drive, you know. So when they do well, I get the same rush, you know. And when we don't do well, I feel the same disappointment, which pushes me to keep going, you know. So that's the nice thing. So doing the business is like the racing team, so it's like the rush for me.
Okay. How much do you see changes in F1 industry from your time to now?
Ooh, that's a big question. In many ways, Formula One's not changed at all since my time. You know, the way the village is in Formula One and everyone works together and they travel together is exactly the same. I still see guys. My data engineer is the engineer for Charles Leclerc right now. You know, Laurent, who was my engine engineer, is one of the chief guys in Ferrari. You know, there's a lot of the guys are still there. So in some ways, Formula One is still the same thing for me. But obviously the cars change, you know. The drivers are getting better, you know. My generation, you see a lot of accidents, you know, drivers making a lot of accidents. That's because they don't race so much. But nowadays, you know, especially the new generation, the Verstappens, the Lando Norris, the George Russells, Alex Albons,
All the young drivers,
they do so much sim driving, you know. You just heard, you know, Verstappen races with us. We do races on the sim together. So when you're doing those crazy hours on the sim and then you go into the car, that's why the new generation here are so much better than my generation.
Okay, so recently there's an FIA statement saying that the head of Formula One's governing body warned on Tuesday that online abuse, including death threats and whatnot. So social media did not active during your days. So do you feel lucky about that?
I do, actually, because I got some bad press in my day, you know, and that was horrific by itself. You know, but if it'd been Twitter and stuff, it'd have been, what, 10 times worse? Yeah, so I think, you know, it's good, that's the right message to say, right? You got to clamp down on this, you know, it's not really acceptable. But this is not a motorsport problem, it's a football problem, it's a hockey problem, you know, it's a worldwide problem. But every sport has to do its part, and doing its part is to make it not acceptable, you know. And it's also up to the guys who are leaders in the industry, like the drivers or the team owners, to reinforce that and don't accept it, you know. It's so easy to say something and it gets taken out of context and it blows up.
So you were the only Asian driver in 2001, right, in F1. So for sure there were too much pressure you had, the same as Lewis Hamilton's now pressure that he has now. So talking about someone's mental state when they receive that kind of pressure, it will affect on one's career. For what happened to Lewis now? So what's your comment on that?
See, I don't know how to answer that question. I get this question a lot because I never felt that pressure. For me, the pressure of driving was nowhere near as high as the pressure I felt myself. You know, if I won a race, I was never happy. I was always thinking about what I could have done better. I think it's the same for most of these Formula One guys. Yeah, I mean, it's probably annoying when they read some stuff on the thing, but they don't feel the pressure. Because anyone that reaches this level, the pressure you put on yourself is much higher. So I sometimes talk to drivers and, oh, you know, I feel the pressure now that I've reached a different level, and I never understood it. I didn't get it. Because for me, it's like, what pressure? So someone is expecting something of yourself. So what? You know, the pressure you have to succeed, you put on yourself is far higher. I never ever felt happiness when I won a race. I only felt disappointed at the things I could have done better. But there were some races I didn't win. But I was very happy in my performance because I know I drove very well. You know, the result doesn't matter. It's all about how you do against yourself.
So let's get into more serious question. Like Lewis Hamilton is the only black driver in F1 and he initiated the We Race S1. So, but somehow it received like a lukewarm response from the other drivers also. Do you see this issue racism issue is a serious issue in motorsports now?
Yeah, I would say a lot of sports, you know, they're European based, they're called world championships.
Yeah.
But they're not really world championships, are they? They're based in Europe, all the teams are in Europe, all the racing is out of Europe.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like how when Americans call NFL the world championship, or they say basketball, NBA is the world championship. It's not really, it's just in America, you know. So these sort of things have always existed. I think what Lewis has been doing about trying to bring more awareness to diversity and creating more opportunity for different ethnicities and women and stuff, I think that's a good thing, you know. It's very easy to be bored by it, you know. We as people can hear the message too many times, go, okay, enough, I don't want to hear anymore, I just want to focus on the racing. But then you just have to remember it's still an important message. So maybe if you don't want to hear it anymore, that's your own prerogative, huh? But I don't think anyone should speak badly about it, because I think these are worthy subjects that need to be discussed.
Did you ever receive that kind of treatment during your days in F1?
Sure, absolutely. It's very different for me because, you know, I mean, for Lewis and other drivers who come from Europe, they have everything made for them. They know what to do. Hundreds and thousands of people in each country know what to do. For me, it's very different. Coming up Malaysia, we know nothing. Huh? We just had the Tiga track.
Yeah.
We brought MotoGP. I raced Proton Sagas. What do we know about racing? You know, we go to Europe and we make it up. You know, so for me, likewise, it's actually Naren Karthikeyan had the same issue for India. When he got to Formula One, he got a lot of criticism. But that's because at that time, no one knows the sport. You know, I think a lot of people know the sport now, you know, Netflix. So a lot more people are informed. But then, like you said, we have the craziness of social media, and social media is very extreme.
So let's talk about last year's FIA's decisions on Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, the two rivals now. So do you think it's unfair, the decision from FIA to Lewis and Max, or we can blame Lewis or Max?
Yeah, I think for sure a mistake was made, you know. When people say Lewis is robbed of the World Championship, I kind of hear them. But it's done, it's dusted. These things have happened before, you see it in football. Sometimes the referee sends off the wrong player and stuff. It happens, it's part and parcel of the sport. We have to move on past it. To say Max is not a worthy champion is also wrong. You know, he wasn't in the faster car last year, and the way he performed, I think he thoroughly deserved to win the World Championship. But at the same time, I also get it when Lewis fans say that he was robbed, because he was.
After you left F1, there was some kind of rumors or whatnot that saying that they owed you a salary. Then, may I know the updates from your side?
Well, I mean, obviously that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Things were done. Certain commitments weren't made or fulfilled. Sport sometimes, and like in any sport, you just need to move forward. So, at the time, I didn't want to dwell on what was not given or promised, and because it doesn't help me, and then you sink and you just think about it. So, we had to move on. I had a pretty decent career after that. You know, I went to America, I raced in America, I did ovals, I went to Australia, did Bathurst. A1 GP was good for me. You know, I won some GT championships as well, you know, so I had a very good career after that. But if I'd been focused always on what had not been given to me, then I'm just stuck. And I see that a lot with motorsports. A lot of drivers stuck. They get angry, you know, because they didn't make it, they lost a lot of money, families become bankrupt. Normal story, yeah. But if you fixate on it, then you're stuck. So we decided that we just move forward.
Okay, let's talk about funding, such as sponsors and whatnot. During your times, there was some speculation saying that you received some kind of sponsors, 5 million from a company. Do you think that 5 million is enough for the drivers now?
Oh, I can't even remember how much it was. All I know was I had sponsorship to race in Europe in '96 from Silverstone Tires, and High Rev actually gave me a bit. And then from then onwards, there was no sponsorship because recession, 97, 98 recession. So we were just borrowing money to keep racing. So there was nothing. I think tourism actually gave me maybe a tiny bit. And then the Formula One deal happened. You know, we got the offer. Magnum stepped up, and I think Go KL stepped up. But those deals didn't involve me. I don't know how much was paid or whatever. I was just there to drive. You know, I was just glad for the opportunity.